Have you ever seen something great just fall apart? I don't mean over centuries, I mean in the span of a single generation. Well, that's exactly what we're looking at today, the incredibly fast collapse of the ancient kingdom of Judah. It's a wild story of kings, prophets, and one very important scroll that basically sealed their fate.
Seriously, think about that. Just 22 years. That is all it took for a stable kingdom, a nation led by a righteous king, to face total, complete annihilation. So the question is, how on earth does that even happen? Let's dig into this historical puzzle together.
Okay, just look at this timeline. It is breathtakingly fast. In 609 BC, you've got this great reformer, King Josiah, who dies unexpectedly. Flash forward to 586 BC, and his capital city is nothing but a smoking ruin, his people dragged off into exile. We're talking about one disaster after another. A new superpower rises, there's a siege, an exile, and then boom, total destruction. All of it in just over 2 decades. It's insane.
All right, so let's start with the most immediate cause, the leadership crisis that exploded right after Josiah's death. This is really a classic story of a generational shift gone horribly wrong. You have a good father, 3 sons who wanted nothing to do with his legacy, and, well, the tragic end that followed.
So let's meet the sons. First up, Jehoahaz. He lasted a whole 3 months before getting exiled. Then you have his brother, Jehoiakim, who's basically this cynical politician playing power games, and he lost big time. And finally, there's Zedekiah, a guy who was so indecisive he just blew whichever way the political winds were gusting. But here's the key fact, the thing that ties them all together. Not a single one of them even tried to follow the righteous path of their father.
But that just raises a bigger question, right? Why did all 3 sons fail so spectacularly? Was it just a string of bad luck? Well, the history suggests something much deeper was going on, something the writers call the sins of Manasseh. But hang on, this isn't what you might be thinking.
See, the key here isn't some kind of magical curse reaching out from a past generation. It was all about trajectory, a cultural momentum that was already pulling the entire nation in a really dangerous direction.
Think about trajectory like this. It's a downhill slide. It's so easy to just keep going down because, gravity's doing all the work for you. That was the path their grandfather, Manasseh, had put the nation on. It was the path of least resistance. Going uphill, though, that takes an incredible amount of effort.
And this shows the dynamic perfectly. First, you have Manasseh, who ruled for over 50 years. He sets the nation on that easy downhill slide. Then his grandson, Josiah, comes along. He represents this heroic 30-year effort to climb back uphill, a temporary blip fighting against all of that momentum. But the second he was gone, his sons didn't have to do anything to fail. All they had to do was let go and slide right back onto the path that was already there.
Now, if you really want to get inside the mindset that sealed Judah's fate, you only need to hear one story. It is the absolute centerpiece of this whole collapse, and it perfectly captures the attitude of the people in charge. It's all about that king, Jehoiakim.
This is basically a tale of 2 kings, a father and a son, and their completely opposite reactions when they heard the exact same kind of message from God. One of them shows a heart that's open to change. The other, a heart that is just hardened beyond any hope of repair.
So let's start with the father, Josiah. Years earlier, when the book of the law was found and read to him, he was absolutely horrified. He saw just how far off track the nation had gone. He tore his clothes, this huge public display of repentance, and he immediately started these massive reforms. His heart was soft.
Now, contrast that with his son, Jehoiakim. The prophet Jeremiah sends him a scroll filled with dire warnings of disaster. Does he tear his clothes? No. He has someone read a few columns, then he calmly takes out a scribe's knife, slices that section right off the scroll, and just tosses it into the fire pit next to him. And he keeps doing this piece by piece until the entire warning from God is nothing but ash.
This number, it says everything. The historical account makes it crystal clear. Neither the king nor any of his officials showed even the slightest bit of fear. No anguish, no regret, nothing. Even when some of them begged him to stop, he just kept on cutting and burning. This wasn't just disbelief. This was pure, absolute contempt.
Now, it's really easy to look at a story like that and think, well, I guess their fate was sealed. But if you do that, you miss a fundamental point about the worldview in these texts. This tragic end was not inevitable. It was a choice.
You see, that scroll Jehoiakim burned, it wasn't a final verdict being read out in a courtroom. It was a warning light flashing on the dashboard of a car heading for a cliff. It was a desperate call to change course, not a declaration that the crash was unavoidable.
This highlights a really crucial difference. In a lot of the ancient world, prophecy was about discovering a fixed future that was already set in stone. But in the Hebrew tradition, it was conditional. It wasn't about revealing what must happen, but what will happen, unless you change. All the responsibility was on human choice.
And this quote from the source material, this is the proof. These are God's own words to the prophet Jeremiah as he's being told to write the scroll in the first place. The entire purpose of the warning was to offer hope. That one word, perhaps, just hangs in the air. It means that even at this incredibly late stage, the door to forgiveness was still wide open. They just had to choose to walk through it. So why does a 2,600-year-old story about a collapsed kingdom actually matter to us today? Because this whole principle of trajectory, of generational momentum, it's timeless. It's not just about nations. It's about our families, our communities, and our own individual lives.
The reality is, every single one of us is living on the social, cultural, and spiritual momentum built by the people who came before us. But here's the catch. That momentum isn't infinite. It can run out. And that brings us to the really critical question this whole story forces us to ask ourselves. What kind of precedent, what kind of trajectory are we setting right now?
In the end, it really all comes down to this one question. Are you putting in the hard work to build an upward momentum to fight against the slide? Or are you just taking the path of least resistance, that easy way downhill? What momentum are you building for the people who will come after you?